Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 92. Last week we had Louise Penn Agronomy, one of those conversations where I like to think I have a bit of an understanding of crops, and then they talk about things and I have no idea, which again is going to be a bit like today's episode. I'm going to think I've got a bit of an idea, but I'm really not. And next week we're actually travelling. Well, we're not travelling. I'm still going to be sitting in this exact same chair. But we're going to be interviewing someone in Cameroon. Henry Fung, I believe the guy's name is, of Fungem Farms. So yeah, we're going to be seeing another sort of culture there, seeing how we're producing food in a different country, which is always an exciting thing to do. But today we have someone that I'm going to guess quite a few of you follow on Instagram, Justine, otherwise known as Rack of Glam. Justine, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Just before we get started with another episode of the R2Kast, I would like to thank our primary sponsors, A-Plan Rural. A-Plan Rural are heavily involved on the social media scene in the ag space with 120,000 followers on Instagram. They use this following to host social media takeovers with farmers throughout the country to showcase their stories. They also post to their rural community blog with further stories about these people in the industry. On top of this, they like to support initiatives that are championing the British agricultural industry, such as myself. So thank you to A-Plan Rural for that.
So very much an episode looking forward to. I'm very much a fan of lamb, beef, pork, the full shebang. So going to quite enjoy hearing the story of how it gets to the plate. I will throw out one disclaimer. I don't know if I'm hiding it at all at the minute. I'm pretty sure I'm not, but we both do have colds. So we're going to try and hide that as much as we can, but I'm sure it is going to probably crop up at some point. So apologies for any sniffles in advance. We don't have to worry about health and safety and COVID over Zoom, though. So that's one thing, one good thing.
We're very much social distancing here, aren't we?
Exactly. Was it Manchester to Dumfries? Yeah, I think that's enough.
Yeah, that's long enough.
Boris won't be out in the helicopter with his sniper.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was a weird time, wasn't it? Everyone thinking.
Oh, an awful time. The first lockdown though was banging, like the sunshine. I think I sat in the garden and got drunk nearly every day.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It was bliss. Like it was the weather. If you had a bit to go outside, that you were allowed to go outside. It was absolutely gorgeous. I was just lambing for most of the first lockdown, and yeah, all the way until July, sort of just on the farm. It barely rained once.
Yeah.
You almost kind of felt bad for everyone that was stuck in flats.
Yeah, definitely. I was so lucky to have a garden.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. But yeah, basically drunk 24/7. This is taking a good sort of start to the podcast. Maybe that'll be a good way to get around this cold. It's just a few beers,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
it might make it a bit easier. Justine, could you tell us a bit about your sort of background? What was your idea as a kid that you wanted to do when you were older? What did you want to be?
Honestly, when people ask me this question, I have no idea. Like, I've done so many jobs in my life. Like, I wouldn't even be able to count how many jobs that I've had. And right. Last year in February, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so now it all makes sense, like why I couldn't like keep a job or like want to stay in a job. So I finished college, what did I do? So I finished college, did travel and tourism because I just wanted to travel. And I was like, oh, I'll do childcare so I can be a kids rep. Did that. And then I just went traveling, where did I go? I went to France, Greece, Spain, Austria, working as like a kids rep and nanny. That was really fun. Then came back and then I was like, oh no, now I need to find a proper job. So I did a few like little bits of jobs here and there, but nothing really stuck. And then everyone just says like, oh, you just need to go to uni. So that was my answer. I was like, right, I'm going to go to uni, get a degree, and then that will sort my whole life out. And I did that for 4 years, graduated, went into the job. So at uni, I did politics and welfare. And then in my third year at uni, we did a module on housing. And I've always been I feel like people deserve a home and shouldn't be homeless. So I really wanted to go into that aspect of it, into housing and homelessness. So then I did that for a few years and I got so stressed. I think the job itself, it's quite rewarding, but when you actually doing it, it's just really, really stressful. I think with the system and especially the government we've got in, like you just kind of don't really get anywhere with it. So, and then I saw things that I should never have really seen, and I just put my whole heart into it. And I think when you're in that kind of job, you need to be empathetic, but also you need to have a wall up and not take things home with you. But I did that all the time, and I couldn't, my own mental health couldn't handle dealing with it, so I kind of just left it. And then I had a bit of a midlife crisis at 29. And I was like, what am I going to do now? Like, I've got this degree, I'm 29, I've got other stuff that I've done at college and stuff, but I can't find a job that sticks. And then during lockdown, me, my partner and a friend set up a meat delivery company. So our USP was mainly supporting farmers who weren't being able to supply to restaurants because they were all shut, but also trying to be sustainable and ethical, like that word that we mentioned before. But yeah, sustainable, ethical, introducing different cuts of meat that customers probably might not have eaten before or can't get in the supermarket. And it really hit off. Like, we were just delivering in Greater Manchester, so we were trying to be local. And whilst we were doing that, I just had a bit of a light bulb moment and thought, maybe to be as sustainable as possible, I'll get more involved in the company and learn how to cut up the meat that we deliver.
That's been a whistle-top tour of your whole life. Sort of went around everything. Just to sort of pick some.
And that's my life,
yeah, for sure. Just to pick apart some bits. First off, I thought you were younger.
Really?
Yeah. I thought you were.
That's amazing. I'll take that any day. It must be the Botox.
People say that to me as well.
I do get it a lot. Like, people always like really shocked when I tell them, like, I'm 31 now, I think. It's weird when you get to like past 30, you just kind of forget how old you are. And I'm like, I think I'm 31. Yeah.
Like, even past 21, I'm like, 25, 26, 26. Like, yeah. It just doesn't matter like anymore. It's just
it doesn't matter anymore.
Maybe like your 50th. I always think that's quite a fun one. Not that I've had it, but I just seem to think. I think it's because my dad's 50th. We had a garden party. I'm sorry, Dad, if you're listening. I'm really going to go for it. I would have been. My dad was 50. I must have been about 14, and I really hadn't drank up until then at all. And it was about 2 a.m. It was a Sunday night. I was going to school the next morning, and Dad told me to go in and get myself a pint of whiskey. So that was
a pint of whiskey.
Yeah. That was where the joy of drink sort of kicked off. But it was a good night.
Is that a Scottish thing? You have to drink a pint of whiskey?
I don't think anyone drinks a pint of whiskey. Especially not a 14-year-old at 2 a.m, 6 hours before school. That's here. Maybe some of them do, but it wasn't me. Yeah, for sure. That housing thing, that's sort of one that you mentioned you take home. Like, there's no way you can't. The shelter is the basis for what like life requires, and it must be hellish to see folk that don't have that, and really you struggle to find a way to get them that.
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, in some of the cases that it's really, really upsetting, and it's massive how, especially like drug and alcohol, have such a hold on people and really, really affects people's lives. And people sometimes say like, oh, just stop taking drugs or stop drinking. It's never that easy, is it? And people with mental health issues or trauma or PTSD turn to that as an escape. And yeah, it's really, really difficult, and it is hard not to take it home with you. And some people can do it, but I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I would have my work phone on all the time, or I'd work on my days off, and it's just not sustainable as a person to do that. So I would say you're clearly quite like a sort of, I don't know if emotional is the word, but you sort of get invested in things. I'm so emotional, so emotional.
Probably the wrong for that job. Yeah. There's a lovely side to it, but also like it's going to kill you if you keep going.
Yeah, definitely.
That was a really interesting caveat into addiction from a pint of whiskey.
Yeah. I feel like this is an intervention now.
That's it. I know exactly. Right, let's go.
Yeah.
No, I I've never been addicted to substances of any form, but I was addicted to gambling, and like it owns you. Like, you know, you're not in charge of your life; it's in charge of you, and it's a scary thing, especially when it gets to the stage that, you know, you start to lose your house, you start to can't afford food and all that. Like, it's not nice. So I totally get why it was probably a bit much. What when you were traveling to different countries throughout Europe, working as a nanny, how does that work? Do you just go out there and find the job there, or do you find the job before you go? Is that quite easy to find?
Yeah, so I found it before I went. So it's mainly like UK companies. So the first one I worked for was Eurocamp. Have you ever heard of them?
I haven't, no.
So it's like they have like loads of different campsites across Europe, like caravans and campsites, and then people just book kind of like package holidays, and then we just look after the kids while they're there. And then I worked for Thomas Cook when it was in its heyday. But so then they just kind of sort everything out for you. So they sort out your accommodation. They send they put your flights and sort everything out for you. So Shit! I was thinking, I was like, if someone comes to the door, these dogs are going to go mental. Shit! Right, we'll stop now.
It just wants to get involved.
It's so annoying. But yeah, they're all the companies that I work for are UK based. So I literally just applied from online, and then they kind of just sort everything out for you, which is what I need in life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Do you mind speaking a bit about the ADHD thing, Justine? Because it's not a thing I've been diagnosed with. I think my mum told me that as a primary school kid, they came in and did a check on me or whatever. But like, I do wonder about it sometimes, and I'm like, I don't even know if it would help if I went and tried to find out. Like, I kind of know how to work with it, but was sort of organisation and just everything in general really difficult until you knew that's what it was?
I would just like to quickly interrupt the show for a minute to give you some extra information on our primary sponsors, A-Plan Rural. A-Plan offer bespoke cover for farms and estates the UK over, and will give you tailored insurance for anything on the farm, from your old workhorse tractor that's been around 20 years or a fancy new and exciting diversification.
Yeah, so as a kid, like even growing up, I was like, there's something just not quite right with me. And I always like wondered what it was, but I just thought I was just a bit stupid or a bit special. And then with like, I think as you get older and responsibilities start to get a bit more like serious, like when you're a kid and a teenager, it's just nothing, you can get along with it. But when you get to a certain age, I just thought like the responsibilities, and I can't handle life. And with I think when I was like early 20s, I just went to the doctors and then just said, oh, you've got anxiety and depression. And that's a massive thing that normally happens with people with ADHD. They always get diagnosed with the anxiety and depression, just get put on medication for that. And then later on in life, I'm just like actually looking into it more. And I kept seeing things on TikTok. I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And especially at work, I weren't taking anything in, or like I couldn't focus, or I couldn't, I was awful at work. So then I spoke to my doctor, and then she kind of does a referral, then refers you to the ADHD assessors. And she said it's about 2 years waiting, but I think mine only took like 6 months for an assessment. And then they assess you straight away, and then you can they give you different options of what you could do. But he mentioned to me about going on medication, and I've been on it ever since. And honestly, it's changed my life for the better.
Good.
So I'd recommend, like, I speak to loads of people that always say that they think they might have ADHD, and I was like, just go get referred, even if you have to wait 2 years. Like, go do it. Yeah, definitely, because so many more people are actually coming out, and I think a lot of people do have like different bits of it. And yeah, since I've been on medication, my life's changed for the good.
Yeah, for sure. That different bits of it's so important though. Like, I think, you know, You mentioned that you were just told you had anxiety and depression. Like we've coined in the last 5 years anxiety and depression together. They're not the same.
No,
Completely different things.
definitely not.
No one has anxiety. Everyone has both things, and they're, they're unrelated. Like it's mad that they're and it's the same thing. And then you're sort of diagnosed with that, so you start working towards that, and you probably start to think, shit, maybe I am depressed, and then you've got to work away from that when you're actually getting further away from the source of the issue. But I'm glad it's got to the stage that you sort of like that, as you say, it's changed your life. That's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you think, the whole basis of ADHD is not the ability to focus? Do you think the career you're in now is you're sort of almost activating that hyperactivity? You can focus on this, or so you think you've found your thing?
I think it's like a creative thing as well. Like there's different. When I had my assessment with ADHD, he said I wasn't, because I'm not. Sometimes I do get like quite hyper, but I'm mainly more of a can't really. There was two types of ADHD, but I was not the hyperactive one, the one that women and girls normally experience.
Right.
So like can't focus, more like procrastinator, but more in with themselves, like more, how do I explain it? Like someone who doesn't put themselves out there.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think I've got a mixture of the both. But definitely at work being more focused on things. But I think people with ADHD have got that creativity side, and being a butcher and being more hands-on job, I think that helps, and I think that's why I finally found something that I really enjoyed doing.
Well, it's very creative. You take something from a completely raw product, from something that sits on a plate and is enjoyable. That's, even if that's taking just a cut of meat to being a cut of meat, or if it's taking a cut of meat to being, an added value, a flavored product. That's creative in itself, and it's probably not a thing that people consider as creative, which is a shame.
Definitely.
It's
an art form. It's a craft. Like people, it's so impressive from seeing a body of beef and turning it into all this like wonderful meaty goodness.
That's amazing.
And it is a craft, and it's really impressive.
So just before we sort of get into the butchery side, I realise we've brought a butcher on and we've been speaking for probably the best part of it. I haven't touched on it, but I like to hear folks' stories. So you then started delivering meats. Was that for a local butcher? Did you know that butcher, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so my partner knew the butcher. It's like a little butcher shop in Bolton, and he works with farmers as well. So he's kind of like helping butchers and farmers, and then just bringing meat to people's doors in Greater Manchester, like in city centre. And people loved it.
And I think what's quite interesting about your story, Justine, is quite a lot of people find themselves coming into food and farming because of their gran had a farm, or their gran, or their grandpa had a butcher, or whatever. But you have literally no connection to this side of things, and I think that's why this is brilliant, because we are seen as a sector that's hard to enter. It's hard to come into, and I think that was one of the reasons I sort of wanted to get in touch with you, that you've sort of found a career, you've paved the way for yourself, and so I guess this is maybe a caveat to folk that are listening. When this podcast started, someone got in touch with me and said, how do you get into food and farming? And I thought, I'm sort of the wrong person to answer that. My mum and dad, well, my dad anyway, and my grandpa had owned this farm, and I was born into it, and I wasn't even really that interested at first, and so I'm really the shocking example, but so like someone like this is a really interesting story for that reason.
Because people always ask, like, that's the first question people ask, like, oh, are you from like a farming background? Are you from this kind of background? I'm like, no, not at all. Like my mum was a landlady, so I was brought up in pubs most of my life.
Right.
And my dad was a lorry driver. The only connection I do have, my dad's first job was a butcher. So that's the only little impact. That's the only thing I've got. But I've got no connection at all to it.
Did he push butchery on you?
Oh, he loves it now. Like he's obsessed with it.
I bet. Yeah, that's really cool, actually. Yeah,
he loves it, and he's always like talking about it, and because he can still remember everything. But he loves me doing it, which is nice.
I'm sure you'll be opening up a pub soon enough as well.
Yeah, pub and butchery. That's the dream.
Yeah, I don't think there's two things on this planet I enjoy more than alcohol.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, absolutely. You would have to cater for me though. I'm not really a beer person. I'm more of a sort of porn star martini guy, but it's fine.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Aperol spritz is my go-to.
Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. It's quite interesting. You said your dad used to do it. Is the process relatively similar? Is there changes, or have things changed over the years? Because I assume if it was your dad's first job, that was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think so. Like sometimes I'll mention stuff, but I think pretty much it is the same as what it always has been. Like there's different methods that might be different to what he uses. Like a lot of old school butchers still do certain things that we might not do anymore. But it is just finding a way that works for you. And but I think pretty much the butchery side is all the same.
Yeah. It's quite interesting to hear because you found yourself delivering a product, which quite a lot of folk did over COVID. I don't think many folk then thought, do you know what, I'm going to be a butcher. So, what made that happen? Like that's a massive jump. It seems close, but it's a massive jump.
Yeah, it is. I think it was a good time in my life when I had nothing. I stopped doing that, and I was like, right. And then because we had that on the side, I kind of looked into it a bit more, and when you look at it and you see that there's not that many people going into it anymore, and being a female butcher as well, I thought that was another like unique selling point for the company, not just for myself, but I was like, for the company, like a woman butcher, like this could be a massive thing. And you don't really see many female butchers until you start going onto Instagram. But before I was like, you don't see any female butchers. And I just thought, actually, maybe I'll give this a go. I thought if I don't like it, I'll just stop doing it like I've done with every other job that I've ever done. But I did a week in the butchery where we got our meat from. And then after that, they were like, oh, do you want to work full time? And then, yeah, 2 years, here I am.
It's still, there's no that sort of normal wanting to jump ship now. You're loving what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe in a few years go into, I'm not too sure. Like I was always looking at different courses of like sustainability and working with farmers and stuff like that maybe. But at the moment, I love doing what I do.
So you've sort of found your way in. What sort of training's involved in getting into butchery? Because I don't think it's something you can just jump into and follow someone. Is there training that's required, or how does that work?
Yeah, so a lot of butchers normally work in a butcher's and you learn whilst you're working, and then you can sign up to an apprenticeship, and then you get a trainer comes out and does it like that. I think there is a couple of colleges that you can go to like once a week and learn there, but I feel like the best way of learning it is in the job, and you get paid for it as well. So
yeah.
But there's a few you could probably get through life and not get qualified, and because you just learn everything whilst you're there. But then once you're doing your apprenticeship, you kind of learn like the theory side of it and the supply chain and buying and selling and stuff like that. So that's always beneficial to the role.
Which one did you do? Sorry, did you do?
So I've had so many apprenticeships. Like it's kind of. So I should have really been qualified by now, but I've had a few issues, like a few bumps in the road. So I currently am with Crosby Butchery. They come to me like every 8 weeks. And then hopefully I should be qualified in June.
Excellent.
But yeah, they come to me, and then we do like different bits of like theory, or I do stuff online, and we'll do different bits of butchery, and then you got to do different exams. But it's all pretty simple.
No, good stuff. And you mentioned earlier, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but we're sort of talking about the comparison to when your dad was in the game. You said we're slightly different to old school butchers. Would you say, listening to you say that, would you say you're new school, or is there something different that makes you not old school? Or
kind of like different things, different techniques. Like a few butchers use a cleaver. One, I don't use it because I can't, it's too heavy. I'm just worried I'm going to chop my fingers off. But then two, like when I use a cleaver, I always feel like it messes the bone up a bit. I feel like sewing it, you get a cleaner cut.
Okay.
but that's just through, that's what I've been taught, but also what I prefer as well. And then a few butchers do like stitching, like when they tie the meat, they use like a big like needle and stitch. Like the first butchers I worked at, that was very old school, like with the ways they do stuff, especially with the cleaver and the stitching. But yeah, I just think it's just what you prefer and what you think works best for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you have an abattoir, or are you butchery?
So we're based on a farm shop in Knutsford, Cheshire.
Okay.
And then the people that own the farm shop, they've got the farm next door, which is Moseley Hall Farm. So we're really lucky that we can get all the meat from the farm. And then it gets sent to the abattoir in Crewe, and then it gets sent back to us. So we're trying to be as less food miles as possible, but also really local.
So is all the product in your shop from the farm?
So at the moment we've got sheep and cattle. They had pigs in January, so we'll hopefully have our own pigs soon. Yeah, so we'll be fully self-sufficient with our own lamb, beef and pork.
That's amazing.
That's really, really good. I'm really excited. But every time I go outside, the pigs are there and I get really sad. Like, they're so cute. So I'm like, when I'm going to be butchering these, I'm going to be crying.
The process is hard though, and I think we have to appreciate that. You know, like, I don't know if you've watched Clarkson's Farm. I still haven't seen the second one. You know, I've been a fan of Clarkson for a while, and he's created a career off of pushing the boundaries, just being a bit of a dick, really. You know, but the thing I can't actually remember. I just remember he was putting sheep away. I think it was cast ewes. He was just putting them away, and you know, he was like emotional about it. And I think it's important people see that, like farmers, butchers, and whatnot.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
a product, but it is an animal, and we're aware of that. Like, you know, it's got to be treated with. You mentioned ethically earlier. It's got to be treated here, and you've just said, you know, it'll be emotional, and that's important.
I feel like people need to like appreciate where it comes from and appreciate the process that goes into it. And it's so easy to go into Tesco or Asda and pick up like a piece of meat, like a packet of meat, and then walk out and you've paid £5 for it. But the actual journey that meat's been on and the work that's going into it, people kind of disassociate that. And I think people need to be more taught about like, the farming side of it and where your animals come from and how they're treated and fed, and then the butchery side of it. And people might start to think, actually, there's a lot of effort goes into that. Maybe I should pay a bit more for my meat.
Yeah, I think that would be a consideration. And I think
we had a customer come in yesterday. So we, at Easter time, we always do like a meet the lambs weekend.
Yeah.
And a customer came into the shop and spoke to the shop manager and said, he asked, are you having a laugh? And the manager was like, sorry, what? And then he was like, oh, you've got a meet the lambs weekend and you've got a butchery counter. Do you not find that really disgusting? And we were like, that's mental that people can't associate. Like, we wouldn't have them lambs if we weren't selling it in the counter. Like, yeah, we get a few comments like that, which is mad.
So that person was actively disassociating himself from it.
Yeah, he was fuming that we were doing a meet the lambs weekend because he thought it was very distasteful because we're selling lamb in the counter.
Out of interest, did he eat meat?
No, I'm not too sure, because I said that. I was like, oh, I wonder if he eats meat, but
because it sounds like someone that does eat meat that doesn't want to know the reality.
Yeah, that's what we kind of said. We think that it was someone who does eat meat but doesn't want to know that that's tiny little lamb is what we're going to eat for Easter.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting thought, actually.
I think because when we do the meet the lambs, we like talk about the process and then talk about it being in the counter. Because when we did it last year, people met the lambs, came to the shop, and they were like, "Oh, I can't look at that lamb. I've just been looking at little baby lambs." And I'm just like, it's what it is, isn't it? You've got to learn about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've always sort of been one of those folk that thinks that you have to see where it comes from. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'll hold my hand up. I went to an abattoir and I fainted, but it's not for the faint-hearted. I get that. There's so much care put into it. It's done as welfare away as we possibly can. But I do think as a meat eater, we should know what's happening. It should just be a thin cylinder on our plate. You know, it's a thing that's life has went into and death has went into, and it's important that we respect that.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell us about the process, Justine, because I'm a meat eater. I talk about the sort of abattoir process in my job, but the butcher side is one I'm not really up on. So you get a raw material, a dressed animal, whether that's lamb, steer, whatever. What's next? What are you doing then?
So it just depends on what kind of day it is. We've got like a routine, and like we said before, we're really lucky with the farmer, so we can just say like we want 8 lambs this week, or we want a body of beef, and then that gets sent to the abattoir, then brings back to us. Sometimes we hang the beef for a bit longer. We normally hang the lambs. I think the best time the hanging lambs is like 7 days on the bone, or even backpacked. I think 10 days optimum for hanging the lambs, just to age them a little bit. And then, yeah, we just normally on a Tuesday we do all the butchery. So then we do the butchery. We all kind of like vat pack it, put it in the fridge, and then on Thursdays we'll put the counter on. But yeah, I think that's kind of that sounds really the most boring process ever.
Well, yeah, you made it so simple.
We butcher it and we put it in the counter. That's it.
Yeah. The putting it in the counter part, I assume, is quite easy. But when you say we butcher it, there's more to it than we butcher it. So what cuts are you getting out of it? What bits are going into what? What goes into sausages? What goes into because I've never really known this stuff.
So with the beef, we get the beef in its hind and forequarter. I love doing a hind. I find it really, really fun. So from your hind, you get your top sides, silver sides, knuckle, shin. So your top sides and your silver sides are all roasting joints, and then your knuckle, we kind of used it for braising steak or like diced steak for customers. And then shin, we normally take it off the bone and then just sell that as shin off the bone. People have been starting to buy that a bit more as well. And then you get your choice. So in your choice, you get your sirloin, fillet, rump. You can have your T-bones or any tomahawks off there. And then your forequarter, you get like your chuck, your feather blade, your LMC, another shin, and what else? But yeah, mainly like your slow cooking stuff up there.
Right. Yeah.
And then yeah, lambs are really easy. You've got your shoulders, your middles, and your legs, and you pretty much just get them bits off there, and then people buy a lot of lamb at the lamb shed, so that's good. You go through a lot of lamb.
Oh, do you? No, that is good. And
good. Then any trim that we use, because we've got the farm shop, we've got the cafe that's on the farm shop, so anything that we want to, I'm going to say get rid of, anything we want to get rid of. Everything's fine. It's not, but anything like might we not sell, or we've got bits of trim or stuff, because we sell a lot of lamb burgers and beef burgers in the cafe.
Yeah.
The cafe also makes, like the chefs in the cafe make ready meals for the shop. So we hardly have any waste on the butchers, which is great. We've just got like a bit of bone and a bit of fat that we wouldn't use. But then everything else mainly goes into ready meals, burgers, kebabs, stir fries, and then anything else you can think of just to use up that trim.
That's brilliant. You're adding value at every stage.
Yeah, definitely. Trying not to lose any money. I think it's really important, especially now, like you just need to use everything that you've got and just try and sell it and then not have any waste.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is a question that I always think is a bit silly, but I'm going to ask it. For those you listening, if you're enjoying the sort of butcher chat, I have had butchers on before. R2Kast number 1, funnily enough, was the ethical butcher. 31, I think. That's where I try and show off with numbers. But
yeah, I was very impressed then.
31 was Stephen Mitchell, who's the buffalo farmer up here in Scotland. He talked about butchery. And I think Lynn of Lynbreak, which was number 34, maybe, also talked to me about butchery, if you're enjoying that sort of part of the process. One of the questions I have is, how many, for example, sirloins or fillets do you get off one carcass? How much variation is there? Say that again.
So you get off one body of beef, you get one fillet and one sirloin.
So sorry, like I mean like how many steaks, if you will.
Oh, you're testing me now.
Don't worry, because I know it changes, but
Yeah, I think it just because a couple of weeks ago we got this body of beef in. It was massive, like it was huge. Like normally with a bavette steak, your bavette's like this
right,
kind of size, like stretched out. But this bavette was massive. I've never seen a bavette
right.
that size. And I think because normally our beef comes in at like 170 kilos, but I think this one was 220
Oh,
kilos, and
Jesus.
it was a beast. And we were talking to the farmer. We were like, this beef's like it's amazing, but it's massive. And he was, what did he say? He's like, oh, don't, because I really love that cow. That was like my favorite cow. And I was like, oh, you just need to do that to all your cows. Like, give it a bit more loving. And then,
What
so
did
he
they
must
say?
have been give that one extra special, but it was huge. And the big cuts that we got off it.
That's interesting. And yeah, it's almost one, and I don't really think I've ever really had the answer because I think it is, as you say, it's completely variable.
Yeah, there is. I've spoke to a butcher who can like work out exactly like what you'll get off every animal, and I think that's so impressive. Like hopefully in a few years I'll be able to do that. Yeah, like being able to find out what yields and how much money you could get from that. I think was it on Clarkson's farm actually. Someone
Oh,
there was a butcher telling him like what you could get and how much money you could get for it and how many steaks and stuff.
was that this
Like,
year or last year?
maybe it was season 2, but
I haven't.
I thought it was really impressive, and hopefully I'll be able to do that soon.
That's like a proper knowing your craft, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
someone who's been doing it for years and being able to just get that knowledge off the top of the head.
yeah, amazing. So you've got that 170 kg carcass, or I'm guessing lambs are about 19 kilos, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
How long? I'm really getting caught up with the cold. I'm trying to hide it. How long does it take from that carcass coming in once you first get the saw onto it to being ready to be in the shop?
So when they depends on delivery days, but sometimes I think we had beef hanging in the fridge last week, and then we always do that like on a Tuesday. So we pretty much, me and Rich, who's the other butcher at the shop, we can get through like half a body in a day.
Right, okay.
And then we just back it all up and then put it in the fridge ready to get out.
Excellent. And so it's just the two of you in the shop, yeah?
There's me and Rich as the butchers, and we've got a counter assistant as well.
And so how many folk are employed, I guess, across the whole thing with the farm shop and the
So you've got like 3 of us on the butcher. You've got 4 chefs, pot wash. You've got a woman who makes cakes, one who makes pies. Probably got about 10 or 11 like waiting staff in the cafe, and then maybe like 5 people who work in the shop.
Right,
So
okay.
yeah, but it's quite a busy shop, and it's getting busier and busier. I think a lot of people are becoming more, like, to say we've been there for 6 years, people who live in Knutsford where we are, like they come in all the time and like, oh, I didn't even know you were here. Like, you live down the road. Like, how did you not know? But people just aren't aware that we're there sometimes.
Supermarket's easier, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a thing. I think it's a thing that's slightly changing. For so long the supermarket's been the king. It's been the only way to get everything.
Mm-hmm.
They are sort of, especially with butcher shops. That's the thing that is appearing more. It's almost people are liking that maybe added value, added sort of artisan sort of look to it. I think folk like that.
Yeah.
It does cost, and it's a cost of living crisis as well. But
I've had a few people come in though recently saying that we are cheaper than a supermarket.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent.
Which is also really, really good. Then I was like, oh, maybe we need to put our prices up.
That's it.
But I think when you go into butchers, you are getting that extra special like treatment. Like when you go down a supermarket aisle, the meat aisle, you don't get to speak to anyone. You can't ask anyone like where this came from or what it was fed or how to cook it. So then even if you are going to a butcher, it's paying a little bit more, but you are having that conversation and finding out where your meat comes from.
I hope you've kicked your feet up and got comfy and enjoying another fantastic episode of the R2Kast with another really interesting guest. I would just like to quickly take another second to plug the sponsors of the show today, the Scottish Farmer, and I would strongly advise you to go out and pick one up this week and see even more of the fantastic people that are in our industry.
You're just a number in a supermarket, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're not Justine, you're not Wallace, you're not whatever. What was I going to say? Nah, that's yeah. The train of thought thing I was going to say was, what is the name of the farm shop? Do you do like social media and that sort of thing, or no? If folk want to follow.
So the farm shop's called the Lemon Shed, and the farm next door is Moseley Hall Farm. So they always put like really good videos and educational things up about the farm.
Excellent.
And yeah, that's when you look at that, you can see where your meat is actually being reared.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Well, if anyone's listening, they want to go check it out, go have a look. The thing that I'd seen your page a few times, Justine, for a while, and it was one post that came up from the Inner Roots pod, and it was talking about sort of the challenges you'd faced as a female in the industry, and it was something along the lines of, just because I have a vagina, I can get it, right?
That's followed me everywhere, and I'm like, why did I say that?
It's definitely going to get views, isn't it? But
yeah.
It's here. It is the exact truth. And
Yeah.
what challenges have you faced?
I think it's just people's mindsets, and it's not really like, it's not malicious really. I've never faced anything that's well, maybe actually, but not as, people just think that you can't do it. But it's mainly from customers. They have an idea that their butcher should be male.
Right.
So then, yeah, sometimes they'll ask you, like on Sunday, someone wanted a leg of lamb, but they didn't want it that big. And I was like, I can cut it to whatever size you want. And she's like, can you do that? And I'm like, yeah, just cutting it in half. Like, what else? But yeah, it's like just different like little comments, or like people don't want, especially if Rich is in, like people won't want to speak to me, or they'll always, if I'm serving them, they'll always like be looking at Rich for, maybe because if I'm giving advice, they'll be looking at Rich for like confirmation that it's right. But
right,
yeah, just like little comments and little things, and after a while you kind of just get over it. You just kind of laugh at it. But
you said it's not malicious, and then you went, well, maybe it is sometimes.
There was a few times, like I've had a few, like 99% of people, like butchers and people in this industry, are really supportive and encouraging, but there is a few old school ones out there who might not agree that women should be doing that. So yeah, a few people say like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this job, or yeah, different comments like that. You shouldn't be a butcher. Women shouldn't be butchering. Women should be like doing other jobs.
It's such a surreal, archaic opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. Like this, it's so weird how you think that a woman can't do this job. Like, I'll admit, I can't lift a body of beef. Like, it's not humanly possible for me to do that. I'm not strong enough yet.
But are you talking about 170 kilos here?
Well, they cut it up into its primals, but still, like, if a hind comes in, like, it's massive. I'll never be able to lift that.
I was going to say, like, I mean, I'm pretty strong.
But even Rich struggles with it as well, so it's not.
Yeah,
it's just,
I wouldn't do that easily.
No, but that's the only thing that I can't do in the shop. Everything else is
things to help with this anyway. So
yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
But that's the only. If anyone did say you can't do it, like, well, that's the only thing I can't do. But I can do everything else, and I feel like females have got more of a like attention to detail and feminine touch, and I feel like that really that's really good to have in the butcher shop.
I couldn't agree more, and I've said this a million times. Like, you have two jobs really. You're a butcher and you're a sort of cashier shop person, in the shop, and you're lovely to talk to. So that's a massive pro in that one. And you can do a butchery side, so like you tick all the boxes. And I think like I've said on numerous occasions, I've had many a guy in a lambing shed, and I've had many a girl in a lambing shed. Girls are better in a lambing shed because they have attention to detail. I'm guilty of being like, right, those lambs are fed, right, I've got to go get sheep out. But every girl I had in the lambing shed is like, no, we've got to focus on that for an extra 10 minutes. And yeah, I think we're in this generation where, and I'm going to say something that's going to offend the woke culture here, but we're in this generation where we can't say that someone's good at something, and each person has their strengths. Women have their strengths, and men have their strengths. Like, and we can't stop pretending that's not the case. And there's some jobs that one is better at and one is worse at, but the job you're in, you have assistance for the thing you can't do, lifting up a massive thing that I can do. You know, it's not like only you can't manage that.
No, there's probably definitely a few men that wouldn't be able to lift it up.
For sure, exactly. So yeah, it's an opinion that really annoys me, and I think some of the women farming in general is just an amazing movement. I think sometimes we can sort of almost go in the wrong direction with these things. I think we can wrong agenda for the sake of pushing an agenda, but I think the idea that women can't do what you're doing or just about anything now is such a
definitely
blood boiling opinion.
Yeah, but then you just got to sometimes you just got to laugh at it, like when customers make comments and you just like, I don't always like really smile, and I think it makes it funnier. Like, be really like, yeah, that's fine, I can do that, and then they feel really bad then.
yeah definitely. Yeah, no, 100%. And there's maybe, I'm trying to think, sort of like male female butchery. All the butchers we had back home were male, but when I then moved away, the 3 butchers I went to were female. Now they were notably older than you, like more than double. It's just, I don't know why these sort of stigmas become a thing, but anyway, I'm getting caught on it. It annoys me.
But I think it really, like, sometimes, because when I used to go, I've always been scared of going into a butcher's as a woman, so it's quite intimidating. But if you went into a butcher's and the woman was there as a woman, you feel a bit more comfortable being able to have that chat. So I feel like sometimes people come to the counter who might not normally come to the counter, but because I'm there. I'm not saying that I'm don't know what I was trying to say then. Like, yeah, come to the counter, it's me.
He's very approachable, but I don't know the guy, but just from your social media, it's Rich, isn't it? Yeah. But I've definitely been in butcher shops where I'm like, what are you doing in front of a counter? Like, you're not the person to be talking to. And you certainly don't give off that vibe. So no, I think it's sort of it's a shame that you had the experience of going into butchers and be like, oh my god, I don't want to go speak to them because before you were in this game, Justine, before you were even sort of delivering meat, where did you get your meat out of interest? Did you get it at a supermarket, or did you ever go to a butcher shop?
When we lived, so I live in Manchester now, we lived in Rosendale. I don't know if you've heard of that. We had a butcher's there, so I did get most of the meat from there.
Excellent.
And then my mum, she used to send me to the butcher shop all the time when I was younger. So yeah, I've got a lot of experience using butchers and shopping at butchers. Sometimes like I've been guilty of buying meat, but since I've become a butcher, I've never bought any meat from the supermarket.
You've made me make an active change, because I don't, in fairness. In my old house I did, because it was right next to me. It's
so easy, like I'd never like shame anyone for doing it, because it is easy to do. Like, but I think since I've become a butcher, I would never buy any meat from the supermarket.
Yeah, I think I might make a change there. I think that'll be a thing to do. I think to focus on.
A really delayed New Year's resolution.
Yeah, exactly. I'm terrible at New Year's resolution. I'm like, if you're going to change now, why does it have to be today? Like,
starting right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah, it's got to be now for some reason. But no, listen, Justine, it's been a pleasure to chat. I've as I said, I've followed you for a bit, and I'll be honest, I probably held off on asking you to come on the podcast because I know so little about this stuff, and I just thought I'm going to put myself here. And that's 2 episodes in a row where I've embarrassed myself, because with Louise last week, no idea. She started talking about volatilization of urea something, and I'm like, yep,
Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah,
thank you so much for having me on.
Not at all. It's been an absolute pleasure. I don't know if you've ever watched to the end of an R2Kast, but there's 2 questions we ask every person.
Oh yeah, I was like preparing for this, and then I'm like,
were you?
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm just going to change them now.
Yeah, please change it because I couldn't prepare for the other one. I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the second question is probably brilliant, actually, for yourself to answer because you've came not from this sector at all into butchery. If you had tips for folk coming into butchery and focus that on women if you want, what would they be?
5 years. I like it touring, like really. I'd love to have my own butcher shop, but I think with cost of living and electricity and everything, I'm like, it's a difficult one because you see so many butcher shops shutting for that reason. So it'd be a scary move. So either having my own butcher shop or even just like an online butchery again, that'd be good, like the Meat Co, going to different farms, helping support different farmers. That'd be also a good avenue. And then what was the second question? How would I different tips? Butchery is such an amazing craft career, and if anyone's like thinking about it or thinking what to do, just try it. I feel like it's a hands-on job. You learn so much every day. You get nice cuts of meat to take home every day after work. And it's a free gym membership. So I've cancelled my gym membership because I don't need it.
Good point. That's a good point. Yeah, of course.
But as a woman, if you want to be like a strong feminist and show all the men that you can do anything that you want, then that's even better career to go down as well.
Love that. It's do you know, I love when folk answer the 5-year question and they basically say what they're doing now. I love that.
Yeah.
You're happy, you're enjoying this, and I get your hesitance to sort of go on your own because you're an established business with the full supply chain there.
Yeah.
Here, maybe you will be. Maybe Rack of Glam will be one of the biggest Instagram accounts in the
Rack of Glam worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
Look at this, already started. So
yeah. Trademark that right now.
But I don't know why I'm going to trademark it. But I feel like that'd be a bit unfair on me. You would then go and make it, and then I'm like, well, I'm
Actually, it was mine.
Yeah.
I'll trademark that.
If you're listening, guys, and you've enjoyed Justine's story, if you want to follow her on Instagram, it's Rack of Glam. Brilliant name, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Definitely does what it says in the tin. Her name is Justine the Butcher on Instagram, so that's quite easy to follow because she is Justine and she is a butcher.
Did you say Tinder?
What?
Did you just say Tinder?
I said Instagram. If I've said Tinder, that's
I think you said Tinder. I'm not on Tinder. Definitely not on Tinder.
Oh my god, I'm on so much Cocodamol. I'm gonna have to watch this back after. I'm gonna leave it in. It'll be funny. She's called Justine the Butcher on Instagram.
On Tinder.
Instagram. Oh dear, that's what. Yeah, my sponsors are gonna clip that like that.
My husband's gonna be like, "What is that?"
Well, Fraser, if you're listening, you don't know what Fraser is. Fraser's the sponsor guy. Fraser, please don't clip that and put it out on Instagram.
Please put that
Instagram, on Instagram. Oh, this has been an absolute butchering of an outro. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Go follow Justine. I'm not going to say where because I'm going to say it wrong. Next week, we're having a chat with someone in Cameroon talking about farming out there. I've said for some time now that my goal with this podcast is to have an episode with people farming in 75% of the world's countries. We are currently at 8. So we've got a lot of time to go. Quite a few countries to tick off. Cameroon will be number 9. I have now said on the last 3 episodes, and I'll continue to say this, R2Kast number 100 is going to be an exciting one. It's not a fancy person that you've never met before. It's just going to open up for what is coming next. We do have a 3rd series of the podcast starting then. So exciting times for the R2Kast. Justine, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And for those of you listening, we will see you next week.
I hope you've enjoyed another excellent episode of the R2Kast. I just want to take this moment to quickly thank our primary sponsors once more, A-Plan Rural. If you follow A-Plan on social media, you'll see the work they're doing to really promote British farming and back our industry. It's been a pleasure working alongside A-Plan Rural so far, and long may it continue. The values of A-Plan Rural runs perfectly in line with the whole mantra of rural to kitchen, and I'm glad to have them on board. Check them out on Instagram at A-Plan Rural and on Facebook at A-Plan Rural Insurance. See you for the next podcast.